Hello.
Hello.
This is a special episode of No Technical Difficulties where we've decided to, I don't know, what are we calling this show? The wrap up? The thesis statement? I don't know. We'll think of something. It'll be in front of this video. Here, hang on. Wow. That's a really good title that we picked for this show and the title we will be using going forward. Good job, us.
We will definitely reference it throughout this.
Yes. I could just record myself saying it later. I really enjoy making
Video conversation essay discussion.
It's my favorite show.
Same here. Video conversation essay discussion. It's such a great show. More people need to be watching it.
So, now that we've started our first episode of
Video conversation essay discussion.
Okay, so here's kind of, I guess, what we were both thinking. By the time this goes up, I think our Tunic playthrough will be pretty much wrapping up or almost wrapping up. Basically, I think our thought for this is like every game we play, we talk a lot. That's pretty much that's all we got. That's the whole show. It ends up bringing up a lot of different thoughts about games we played in the past or kind of how we thought about everything about the game we're playing now. It conjures up a lot of memories, at least for me, of like different things. And I guess one of the reasons why I'm doing this in the first place, other than an excuse to play games with B, is I have all this worthless knowledge and these worthless stories that I figure maybe if I put them on the internet, someone will care. So anyway, this is our
video conversation essay discussion
for Tunic, which by the time this goes up, I think we'll have just finished playing or getting close to it. I don't know. We'll see. And obviously, like a big thing with Tunic, as you know, B, is the manual in that game and how much that adds to, like, that's what makes it special, right?
Yeah.
It makes it more than just like a Zelda-like game. And I think as we were playing it, I was kind of thinking about, the death of the video game manual and fond memories that I have with game manuals and kind of like it being sort of this like, I don't know, outside game experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember it was like it was a big thing. Game manuals did not seem nearly as important, I would say, until we stopped seeing them.
Yeah.
And definitely, Tunic, dripping in nostalgia, really did make how important the game manual was so much more. Obviously a game mechanic, a narrative design thing, but also just so, I guess, poignant for those of us that grew up with the manuals.
Right. Yeah, and clearly, like, the designer not only took the like physicality of it, but also the like feeling. Because for me, like the game manual was like the hype before. My mom would buy me a copy of Advance Wars, when we went to Target, and I would read the manual before we got home and be like, we can't wait to play this game.
Yeah.
And learn about the characters and the story and all that stuff. And then, like, I guess around like Xbox 360 era, they just kind of stopped doing it. And I understand why. Like, I think it's a case of like game developers or publishers, I guess, would be responsible for it, or whoever it is, thinking like, hey, nobody cares about this. I guess sort of like how backwards compatibility is now, with where it's like people want it, but also like maybe no one cares. Let's take it away and see what happens.
Yeah, and to me it seems so much like more like a cut costs thing, though.
Yeah, a cold-blooded cost-cutting measure. But I thought, okay, so we both kind of have these feelings about, game manuals and we'll obviously go. I think we're going to go a little further as we continue in this video with other sort of like physical experiences. That sounds bad. Physical.
The mangoes touched us as much as we touched them.
Exactly. That's that's the subtitle for this video. Perfect. But just kind of like, the physical merchandise, I guess, is that the thing to call it? And kind of things in the modern era, and by modern I mean like Xbox 360, PS3 on, that have kind of like filled the gap or tried to fill the gap. It's a bunch of brave souls.
Yeah.
boxing up indie games or adding stuff to collector's editions and things like that. Some of which suck and some of which are pretty good. Anyway, where I thought we should start is with some game manuals that we remember or enjoyed as kids. Unfortunately, I don't know about you, B, I don't have any game manuals from like the 64 era.
No, I absolutely do not. I wasn't thinking that would be a thing that I would need to save, I guess.
You didn't save all your N64 boxes?
I didn't save...
To get them WADA graded?
I didn't save... the only thing I have left of my... Well, I have my N64 still. The only thing I have left of my N64...
Is the OG, the gray one? The, like... Or did you have a cool see-through one?
You know what? I'll grab it. Not
oh my goodness. Wow. A special guest. A Nintendo 64. I'm so excited.
One of the things, though, about the N64 not having manuals from that era, at least for me, is I was so young. Right? The N64 came out in 96.
We were 6 years old.
Or 96, 97, depending on where you were.
Yeah.
I was between like 6 and 7 years old.
Yeah.
I, at that time, found more interest in the game cartridge, I feel like, than even realizing I could read something.
Yeah. It was like, because we never, I guess in my mind, I wasn't old enough to conceptualize that it would go away or that it wouldn't, like, of course games have a manual. Every piece of electronics has a manual. And yeah, I agree with you. I was just like, I just want to go home and play this. Like, this is just a precursor. This is an appetizer, an aperitif to what I actually want to do, which is play Zelda Ocarina of Time. But anyway, so on that note, I got my 64 probably the year after launch. Or maybe it was launch, now that I recall. I would jump from NES to N64. Never had a Super Nintendo. And I have a very vivid memory of this game, Super Mario 64, the launch title.
Love this game.
And I mean that by the launch title.
The one, the only.
And I guess my story with this, and we'll thumb through the manual and kind of talk about stuff, is like, this game, as you may or may not know, for those of you who've played it, you collect 120 stars. And actually...
You don't say.
I was not as obsessed with this game as my nephew was. And my nephew ended up, like, getting all the stars and meeting Yoshi, spoilers, and all that. But before we did that, we didn't have like a guide for it. We never really played like a 3D game before, I guess. Unless you count Wacky Racers on Windows, but no one's gonna know what that is. And we would look through the manual and be like, oh, can we get all the stars? Like, does it have hints for like all the stars?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because why wouldn't it? Like, it has like story and all this other stuff. So I also want to point out the controller joystick function. This was like, they were probably like, people need to know what a joystick is on a controller, these dumb console gamers.
I think people don't realize, which I think Tunic definitely plays into, is these manuals were as much story and how to play the game and stuff, just like from a overall view, they were also there in place of in-game tutorials.
Right, exactly. How to operate Mario, page 8. Yeah. How to play the game. Camera operation, tips, and other details.
Which, thinking about it, I don't think people realize, you have games nowadays, I mean, even Tunic, which is, say, pretty difficult in places obviously your Souls games and your World of
Dark
Difficulty.
Souls will never have a manual.
But, like, those games, like, are all hyped on, we're difficult, we don't tell you how to play, and that's great.
Right.
But they're harkening back to an era where games didn't tell you how to play, but they did.
Right.
If you had the manual.
Right, exactly. So, like, another thing, before we get, I guess, to the tech, by the way, we should mention that we obviously don't have these manuals for real, but on archive.org, we Googled a bunch of game manuals that they had, and we picked some ones that kind of mean something to us or ones that we kind of remember. But anyway, before going to the how to play the game thing, the other key detail is the background story.
Oh, yes.
Look at this. This is a play. Look, we got dialogue, different colors. Peaches, you're telling you what happened.
Yeah, this is great.
Wow, actually,
when we again to Tunic, I forget what episode I mentioned. It was 2 or 3 I think. It might have been one. Where I was like, okay, so we're using the manual. We don't know what the story is yet because we don't have the first couple of pages.
Right, exactly. We just I guess, yeah, now that I didn't think about that until you mentioned it, but we just assume like, oh, it's going to start with the story. And I think maybe that's like a video game language.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A part of video game language that maybe the youngins don't have. I mean, I think they do. I don't know. I don't want to discredit.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. I mean, I don't know if people, like, starting today or starting a couple of years ago, with the PS3 Plus era, would have any idea of the manual tells you the story.
Right. Why would you know that? Look, this one, Mario, you're the only one we can count on. It hypes you up. It actually, I'm just skimming through it as you were talking, and like, this, that implies I was ignoring you. I was not. It tells you like the first part of the game, like, look, he's battling the bombs and doing all this other stuff. Totally unnecessary.
Yeah. But like, also, a lot of these manuals back in the day, which, have up here, but like the original Mario manual and the original Zelda manual are how we knew what enemies were called.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Or what items were called.
Like, look at all this. This is all Mario's moves. This is everything you need to know.
Yeah, I love these Nintendo manuals.
The side somersault, the wall kick. I don't even think Odyssey had any paper in it at all. Like, now my Switch games just come with like an empty box. I mean, there's nice art printed inside and stuff, but
I mean, I'm getting prepared for this. I went through all my current physical games that I have, and no first-party Nintendo game that I had came with a manual or even like insert besides some promotional stuff at all.
It comes with a slot for my Nintendo rewards points.
Oh.
Put a little code in. But yeah, this is like a little bit of encouragement. Don't be overwhelmed. Just read the manual. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Here's some more stuff. It reveals the wing cap. Does it tell you about the other caps? I don't think so.
Wow.
Look at this. These are on the Bowser. Look, it teaches you how to kill Bowser. You know how to fight Bowser. Because it's not like when you fight Bowser for the first time. I don't know. The game might tell you to grab his tail or something, but...
Yeah, I don't remember if it does.
Maybe we should play it and find out. So this is the reason why I think my nephew and I were like, let's look through this stuff. Because it sketches like the castle. I mean, this is like obviously a fabulous representation of the castle.
Oh, yeah.
But like, if you didn't play the game, you're like, oh shit, there's a basement. Oh, there's all this weird stuff. And I think the star we were missing, by the way, as an aside, when we were looking through this manual, was the one where there's like 2 in Princess Peach's castle where you go down that slide. One of them is for beating a specific time, and one of them is for just beating the slide. Oh, look, it did tell you where the wing caps and all that. When you lose your cap. Look at this. Look at this. This is so much information. I'm getting hyped reading it right now.
There's so much here. I mean, not just this, but like, there's so much here that is just teaching you not just about how to play this game, but how to play like any game.
Right.
Which is great.
Well, these tip sections, right? Okay, so this game, for those of you who don't know, you go into paintings, that's the levels. And look, not all courses are entered from paintings on the walls. Some entries are found in unexpected places, so search everywhere. There are definitely a few I can think of in like walls and stuff.
Like the Fireland and the lava.
Right.
Not the lava, but the Metal Mario area.
Yeah.
I always think of it as that. Or one of the water levels.
There was... Is it referenced here? I think it's Dire Docks.
Do we see it?
What?
In this? Well, the Boo area, you don't get there through a painting.
Yeah, that's...
You go through a bird cage.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, this is kind of the end of this manual.
Spoilers.
Spoilers for a almost 30-year-old game. What are we doing? And then, of course, the warranty limitations, which is important for me. So that's Mario 64. Another one that was extremely important to me. Well, okay, we should probably talk about this one, because right now, you won't know this for many months, but we're playing Metal Gear. Was it in the manual? It was on the box, but...
yeah, it was on the box. I don't remember if it's in the manual.
Is it on the back page of the manual? This is the manual for Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PlayStation 1. Oh yeah, here, they have a scan of it.
The scan of the back of the box.
This isn't quite the same thing, but I guess just continuing on that train of like, hey, everything is part of the video game, like the box, the manual, the
Yeah,
discs,
it's all one
that-
experience.
all that stuff. And like this little, everyone I'm sure already knows this who's watching this, because I literally know all the people who are probably watching this. Hi, Mom and Henry and Milan. But like, you know, how you find out Meryl's codec frequency is like right here printed on the box. And then screenshots on the back of the box too. Do games do that? Do they just put art up? I don't even know. But yeah, so you can see in Metal Gear, right? Similar. I mean, Metal Gear is, I think, as we're learning, even in the Twin Snakes version, probably much jankier to control, intentionally so.
Oh yeah.
Than
Absolutely.
Mario 64. Look at that! Look at that PS1 controller.
I mean, they were still creating the language of how to play a game.
Correct. That is true. They don't even have an analog stick. But I mean, you could just,
I completely forgot about that.
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, you could just look at this and be like, "Oh, cool!" Like, and of course, Metal Gear being more cinematic, right? They have the credits with all the different actors and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Genome Soldier A.
I prefer Genome Soldier B. If I had to say myself.
And yeah, like you mentioned, like control. Oh, actually, interesting. Look, there's the controls if you don't have the DualShock, and if you do have the DualShock. That's funny.
One of the things I love about the manuals and like the story section stuff in particular is I could be playing through the game, or as you're saying, riding home, looking at the manual, reading what the prologue or whatever stuff is, or playing the game and go back and be like, did I understand that right? Let me go back and read that section of the manual.
Right.
Or just for years on end, just like, this is just a cool thing to have. I want to relive the story without playing the game right now. So I'm just gonna pick up the manual and read.
Like, oh yeah,
and read. This is what was going on at the beginning.
Or in this case, if you want to relive Metal Gear 1 and 2.
Yeah.
By the way, so this is actually, we were talking before we started recording, and you were like, "Wow, it's not clear in Metal Gear Solid 1 that like there was like a country." Like Outer Heaven. But if you read here, a small but powerfully armed nation called Outer Heaven emerges from deep within South Africa. So, I mean, it's there in a little blurb, but not in the game, right? Like, they expect you to read it and go through all this stuff, and look, it's Foxhound logo. These are good scans.
And I love that. And, you know, Tunic did the same thing, right? There's just stuff you won't know or understand.
Right.
And Tunic especially, because there's almost no understandable dialogue that you would only know by looking at this.
And I guess some of this stuff, like...
Speaking of Tunic...
Torture event!
Speaking of Tunic and manuals, something that occurred to me, because I was replaying Tunic after we beat it, is...
Spoilers.
The manual, right? The big thing is that even when you get all the pages, not all of the words are in your
right.
an actual language.
They're in the
or a modern language, I guess. And my thought was, I don't know if it is, but this could very much be a reference to people in other countries getting a hold of a game that is, say, only in English
that's interesting.
or only in Japanese, but you know just enough of that other language to pick out words here and there, but you don't know anything else. You're just working off of the images and context clues to figure out...
You know, a heart is health or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just playing Castlevania.
Or, oh my god. Crap, the game with Pit.
Kid Icarus?
Kid Icarus also hard to start with.
Right. Yeah, that's actually good. That's an interesting thought. And probably... I mean, I've never had the pleasure of buying a game that was only in Japanese and trying to figure my way through it, but... I mean... By now, or at least even in the PS1, PS2 era, like, yeah, there's like a universal language.
It reminds me of, because I always have to bring up what's his face?
Dark Souls.
Miyazaki said the thing was...
I was just kidding.
No, yeah. Dark Souls was that...
You guys heard of Dark Souls?
The reason the story is told in those games as it is because he is trying to recreate a time when he would get fantasy books and couldn't didn't know enough of the language to
That's
know
right.
what all of
Yeah.
the books were saying.
That's right.
It just seems like that's sort of how Tunic is
Well, here's something very
replicating that.
Tunic-y. Here's something very Tunic-y that I found in this Metal Gear manual.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tunic, if you've watched us play through it or watched anyone else play through it, you know, like, usually you do a thing in Tunic, then you get a manual portion that says, like, hey, here's how you do this thing, or beat this level that you just beat, or whatever. So, if Metal Gear Solid were Tunic, you'd probably get the torture event page, page 14, after you were tortured, and be like, oh, that's how you do it. I mean, I think the game tells you anyway, but...
Or like how to drop down.
Right, exactly, which is something I had to Google, which I probably wouldn't have to if I had the manual. Like explaining the radar. I mean, the game, Metal Gear Solid, to its credit, is uniquely verbose, but...
I do like, well, sort of. I do appreciate the attempt nowadays by indie people working on stuff like Fextra Life to archive games and have as much of the lore and stuff in one place.
Yeah.
For somebody to use as a walkthrough, or not a walkthrough, but like just an intro to the game. But I know it's not the same thing.
Do you still, if you
Not
go
a
on
curated
like
experience.
on Fextra Life or something, or like if you go on, like sometimes I'll like if a game's been out for a while and I bought it late, the first thing I'll do is usually go to like the story bits. I mean, there's always like I always try to find like the 10 tips. You know, every game website does that now.
Mm-hmm.
But do you ever go to like the story bits first and you're like, I'm gonna read the back, like what they have for the story, and try to like get a feel for this world?
A bit. I mean, I try to nowadays. I guess just hope there's like story trailers.
Yeah, I mean the game is gonna tell you. It's not quite
Yeah.
like it used to be.
I guess not as archaic as it used to be, because story is now appreciated in games.
Right, and they want you to see it all. They don't want to just shove it in a page in a manual, which...
No, what I do is dumber. Now, what I'll do, I will open up a walkthrough and just see how many areas I have left in the game.
Oh, I do that shit.
Like I just necessarily look at the walkthrough. It's like how many areas left are there for me to get an idea of how long I have to play the game.
Yeah, I do that. I do that all the time.
I like all these frequencies.
You don't even know who like Natasha is, or Meryl. None of these
True.
people.
I do. One of the things I love
Don't
about this
start.
too is that they show you all those, and
Yeah.
technically you can attempt to call these people before the game even
Right.
suggests doing it.
And Metal Gear is that special game where you can punch that frequency in and be like, what happens? I know we're gonna get Stinger missiles later.
Yeah, this is great.
Like when we were playing, we had a technical difficulty with the save file, and we played through the first portion of Metal Gear
No, we didn't.
again, Metal Gear Solid. And I asked Tommy at one point, I was like, hey, do you know the name of this? We were at the part with Meryl. I was like, did they reveal it yet? And she's like, no, I didn't reveal it yet. But I'm like, oh, I just probably knew that from just the game just tells you. It's not a secret.
So, do you have a
Hot
favorite,
tips.
a favorite game manual?
I do. I have quite a few. We'll go through some of my absolute favorites through this, but one that I couldn't find that I want to talk about is the Manual to Civilization 3.
Okay.
That manual is probably... It was back in the old days when PC games came in a box. And that manual is probably like 100 pages. And it
Wow.
goes through like... Civ 3 added like... I think Civ 3 added the like... civil unrest mechanics and like a bunch of weird like I mean the combat system was a little different and like the resource system was a little different, and that manual went through like every single civilization in the game and talked about all the world leaders and gave a little historical blurb. It was huge, and I have a vivid memory. This is why it's my favorite manual. Actually, I also have a favorite game guide, which we'll get to later on. But favorite. My mom bought me that game at Costco, and then we went to El Pollo Loco to have lunch, and I just like sat at the table in El Pollo Loco just reading the Civ 3 game manual and just like trying to absorb as much as I can before I start playing the game, because I knew it was gonna be complicated. I knew a little bit about Civilization. I think I had already played Civ 2. Wow, I was probably like, I don't know, I was under 10 years old. I don't even know when Civ 3 came out. But that's probably my favorite After Mario 64. I like the Mario 64 manual quite a lot too. And we'll go over some other ones that I like.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this. Quick peek, luring and noise. Can you knock? Does the game ever tell you that? No.
You can knock. Yeah, the game doesn't tell you that.
This is another thing I love when they just go through the characters.
Oh yeah, I love this.
We'll go to the Final Fantasy manuals later, but they go into even more detail about the stuff. But I mean, this is also like somebody's job. I mean, this is obviously Yoji Shinkawa's art, but like writing it out and like laying everything out, right? All the bosses. Look how
the
cool.
bosses!
Look
Wow,
how, this is a poster that I would purchase and hang in my home.
Wow, yeah. Decoy Octopus.
Very little is known about him. Clearly, very little is known.
That's hilarious.
Damn, that looked badass too. This is cool. Ninja. Little is known about this cyborg ninja. NBC Warfare Troops. Unfortunately, not the CBS or the ABC troops didn't make it to this game. This is just called Heavily Armed Troops.
Yeah, well, obviously.
These are all your guys. See, you don't even know who Otacon is at the beginning of the game.
And you don't even know. You just assume you're going to meet all of these people.
Right.
Yeah.
More story. A glossary. Zanzibar, a fortified nation in Central Asia ruled by a minority ethnic group.
Something about this too is this shows, I guess, like a willingness of the game studio or the publisher, I guess, to get really, or to let the creator just sort of, or creators do their thing.
Right.
You know, I mean, I would say notoriously, with Destiny, there's no manual. There's not a whole heck of a lot of lore in game. Instead, you collect lore that you have to go to the website to look at, and then there's just a bajillion things based on if you found that thing while playing.
Right.
And there's like a barrier to entry that I think is supposed to be trying to be gamey and stuff, but feels at the same time maybe off-putting because you have to go somewhere else. You can't, you don't just have the thing that you are playing or this thing that is sitting, this manual that is sitting next to you to give you any idea of what the lore is supposed to be for this thing.
Right. And that goes hand in hand with it being like, in the case of Destiny, being like a live service game where like, we don't know the whole story yet. We'll find out. Although I will maybe it's too far for this video, but like ARGs, I Love Bees. I would love to talk about I Love Bees. When I was a kid, that shit fucking blew my mind. So another manual that we should probably talk about, another formative manual, and these are a lot of PS1 manuals. Final Fantasy VII. I think this is the PAL edition. I'm sure it's pretty much the same. I couldn't find a scan of the US manual.
Might be in French.
Nope. But what I wanted to look at...
This was one of my favorite manuals.
Yeah.
Because I loved seeing all of the character stuff. And you got the story of... But I love just seeing... Whoa.
Like this stuff.
This is their
Did
job.
You know Cloud is 21 years old?
Yeah.
And he's
job,
173
age,
centimeters tall.
Birth date, birthplace. Just love this.
Birthplace unknown. Not if you played the game.
And some of these, and what's great is some of these characters are like secret characters. Right.
We have Avalanche, Weapon, Gun Arm, Coral Village. Yeah.
Like they have Yuffie in this manual. I think on the next page.
I saw Vincent.
Yeah. And
there he is.
You are not required to find these characters.
Vincent Valentine, a mystical man.
And some of the stuff, like, I don't know. You just didn't know that certain things were there unless you looked at the frickin' manual.
So this right here, extremely triggering for me because I'm like, you can fucking snowboard in this game? What? Does it tell you what item? It tells you what items cure what status effects. Okay. Time skip complete. So that brings us to another topic I wanted to talk about.
About a time skip.
Well, Maybe if it's in your Prima Games strategy guide.
What?
What? So I have in front of me, and you'll be seeing on the camera right now, the Prima's official strategy guide for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, which I've dug up and will never get rid of, and is actually in not terrible condition, all things considered. But again, it kind of has like similar kind of stuff, right? Like secrets and like tips and stuff. This guide, if you'll notice in the front, has the sealed secrets section, which tells you all kinds of like cool stuff, secrets behind the mask. And I remember when I got this guide, you had to like had like a perforated edge. You can probably tell a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you had to rip it open and be like, oh, what's going on in here? And it tells you about like the Fierce Deity mask and like
how to get super OP by the end of the game thing.
Right. And it wasn't even, and I don't know, like, I guess now it's like not a big deal in like a digital guide. You can just make it a different tab. But like I remember thinking like, oh man, like
there's a presentation.
Well, I bought this guide and I was like, do I just crack open the secret section now? Or do I beat the game and then go back to it later? Of course, I cracked it open right away because I was 10.
Yeah.
This game came out. But oh yeah, and advertisements for other guides, the Banjo-Tooie guide. And I don't know, even
this is so cool. This is like, wow, this is all of the because I've never seen this one. The name of the enemy, where they are, and how to beat them.
Right. What a strategy guide should tell you. And like,
but it doesn't tell you how much HP they have.
That's true. But in the way that like game manuals are sort of like the light. That light experience where like kind of like what we're looking at the MGS guide, Final Fantasy, all these other ones where they kind of give you the basics of the game, but they don't tell you the story. Like, even though a strategy guide is effectively like one big ass list of spoilers.
Yeah.
I loved playing the game with a guide next to me and just being like, what do I do here? What do I see here? Sometimes they were cleverly worded.
Yeah.
Sometimes you had really bad examples, like the Final Fantasy IX guide, which would be like, hey, you're in the last zone. Do you want to get Excalibur 2? Subscribe to Play Online in order to figure out how to get Steiner Excalibur 2. And I'm like, well, I'm never going to do that.
That's hilarious. Something about the strategy guides, too, for me, and even walkthroughs, as somebody who is colorblind, depending on the situation, I find it really difficult to see things sometimes that the game is like, you need to know to go over here. Or whatever. Right. Or you need to have picked up this item that is the same color as the ground. To me, like, I wouldn't know that unless I had something like a strategy guide to say, "Oh, this is where you go. This is how you get it."
What am I missing? Oh, I missed this one thing.
For some reason, having the guide, even like looking ahead, maybe it's just me, never felt like I was spoiling the game.
Right.
For some reason, going through like a walkthrough online and like looking up what comes up always feels sort of like, okay, well, I'm spoiling this for me.
Well, also, maybe it's the way they're written, too.
True.
Like, where the structure's like, oh, this is, I don't know if this happens in the game or not, where Link dies, right? Or Aloy dies in Horizon. I'm playing Horizon, so that's why I think of that. And I've also done the similar thing you described, where I'm just looking at the chapters so I can see how far I need to go in it. As opposed to, like, I don't know, the strategy guide writers maybe knew their audience a little bit, and they're like, we're going to tease it out. We're going to go step by step. We're going to have screenshots here.
Yeah, there was a different, I don't want to get elitist, but there was a different...
You can get elitist.
There was a different
level. This is an elite level podcast.
There was a different level of presentation.
Yeah.
Like, they knew their audience, but they were playing to an audience. They were trying to get a specific person to get more invested in it through their guide instead of we've referenced a couple of times, IGN guides.
Yeah.
And just their sort of like wrote, go from point A to point B. Not only is that not helpful, that hasn't given me an idea that you actually know what the world looks like.
It's also not sexy.
It is not sexy.
Which is what you want out of a guide.
You do want that out of a guide.
My
favorite guide was my Final Fantasy X one, which I don't have anymore.
I was going to say, a shame.
Which was so amazing. Some of the pages, or the cover, had like a slight laminate bit to it. or like embossing,
Mm-hmm.
and
The 8 guide was like that too.
and there was like just a picture of all of the weapons, all the different weapon looks, because you can get a bajillion weapons and they don't all look differently. I had all of the enemies. It said, "This is in." I don't remember if it was in alphabetical order or like I think it was alphabetical order, but it said weaknesses, strengths, their HP in every different form, MP different forms, and it was just amazing.
So yeah, I guess that's the spiel on strategy guides. We obviously love them. We obviously need.
I need them. I need more. Do
you remember the last strategy guide you bought?
What I bought? I don't. Yes, actually, I do. Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh my
Which
goodness!
is crazy. This really has to be, I feel like, mentioned. CD Projekt Red is one of the only companies left still dedicated to not only strategy guides but game manuals. They have a manual for The Witcher 3 and for Cyberpunk 2077, and they are not just that like inserts. This is how you control the thing. Like they are. This is the world of the game.
Right.
Here's some stuff that you might not see, you might not find in the game, and just all that stuff. And that's just amazing.
Yeah.
In this day and age.
I learned that from actually a YouTube documentary on the amazing channel NoClip, where like their business early on was like they're from Poland, and a lot of game piracy in Eastern Europe. I know very well as a Romanian person. That's how I got most of my games, from people who came over and had just discs of shit. And they were like, hey, we're going to sell Baldur's Gate 2. No one's going to want to buy it. They can just pirate it. But let's put a map and a manual and some other like cool stuff in it. And people bought it. Like they bought it because it looked cool and they liked the game and they wanted it to be something special. So it sounds like they've carried that into, at least up to Cyberpunk. Hopefully they keep it going for
hopefully
Witcher 4. I don't know what it's going to be called.
Yeah, hopefully.
The last game guide I bought was the one that I bought, that I actually bought for like completion purposes, was probably like, it might have been this Majora's Mask guide. But I used to work in Moore Park, California, which you know, but other people don't know. Well, actually, that's not true. Everybody watching this knows that.
Now.
But there was a Blockbuster video there that was closing. This was like 2008, and they had a collector's edition game guide for Fallout 3, and I bought it for 1 penny.
No.
And it was like hardcover. It had like cool art in. I think it had posters that it came with, like Nuka-Cola posters or something.
I am aghast.
And I lost it. I have no idea where it is.
What?
I also got actually Tommy mentioned this. I got the game guide for the Pokemon trading card game, which might have been the guide I bought right before the Fallout 3
Wow.
guide, which goes to show how I'm part of the problem. I got that for 1 penny. Wow. That was probably like 3 or 4 years before, at the local GameStop, which also no longer exists.
Something that, going back to Tunic, there was an article that I read, and I sent you, about how Andrew Schuldice, who's the core developer for the game, literally made the manual.
Yeah.
For the game.
For themselves, right? Just
for himself. And we mentioned it a number of times. The game, when we first heard about it, was called Secret Legend. Mm-hmm. And it came out...
Great title.
It was, what? I want to say 8 years ago or something like that. We heard about it.
We played it in...
It was like 2016.
We played it the year you got married, 2016.
And so... And like there'd been changes, like small changes from when we saw it to when we first saw it to when we saw it, again, and then when it came out.
Although the beach, waking up on the beach was still a thing in that demo we played.
But a part of me is like reading this thing about how he made this manual and how that was going to be a part of the game, that there was going to be a manual there. I wonder if the game changed, and that's why it took so much longer, when he decided to make the manual represent the core I guess, narrative loop of the game. Because the game had to be entirely reworked
Right.
around
Obfuscated.
around hiding truths, I guess,
Right.
about itself, because you didn't have a manual.
Yeah, that early when granted we only played like a 20-minute demo, but yeah, it could have just been a Zelda-like game, because that was kind of before like these other Zelda-like games have come out since then, like Hyper Light Drifter or Blossom Tales, to think of a couple. It could have just been that, but yeah, it would probably required so much reshuffling and adding lore, probably, that maybe could have just been a typical story, but instead like becomes this weird, mysterious thing. I mean, fans of No Technical Difficulties have heard us try to piece this stuff together, and we're wrong 50% of the time, maybe, on our conclusions.
And rewatching, as an aside, our episodes of No Technical Difficulties, I am not convinced that even at the end we had a full idea of what we were even talking about.
Oh,
what was going on.
It could be Fox parent.
It could be.
Or it could be Fox previous self.
Yes, could be. It could be Hollow Knight.
Yes, it's just Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
Some people don't care about Hollow Knight. I'm just going to throw that out there.
It doesn't have a guide. I love it. It doesn't have a guide.
Talk about a fucking game that needs a guide.
Wow.
And a better map.
Wow, shots fired.
We'll play Hollow Knight. I'll suffer through it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite games.
This is a little inside baseball here, but we've created a very Russian roulette style situation where we pick the game for each other.
I might have to pull the trigger and just force some games to be played.
B had mercy on me. As of right now, I don't know. I guess we record Ni no Kuni at this time, which is a game I want to play, but I think my luck is gonna run out if I keep talking shit. I'll get you back. Don't worry. We'll play Freedom Fighters 2 when it comes out. Inevitably, it's gonna come out.
Yeah.
So I guess before we wrap up, the last thing I want to touch on is kind of like future stuff. So it's funny you bring up CD Projekt Red. As you'll see on screen now, I spent money because I'm a Gwent addict, which is probably clear to everyone that's watching this.
Or who's about to watch Inscription.
Right. I spent money on the collector's edition of the Witcher 3 DLCs, they're amazing.
They are amazing.
So, like, I'll open up this one. This is for, was not Blood and Wine, for Hearts of Stone. They're real-life Gwent cards. They didn't need to do this. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, I don't care for physical Gwent cards. I'm never going to play. But like this stuff, or like, God, I'm blanking on the name of the website. But there was a website back in the day that would make collector's editions of indie games. And I bought a collector's edition of the game Galaxy the Dimensional. It had like a cassette of the soundtrack and like a model of the ship from the game, which is basically just a Gundam.
That's cool. For anyone who doesn't know how to spell that, that is GALAK -Z.
The Dimensional.
So in case you were looking up Galaxy, that's not what he was saying.
In case you're taking my gaming recommendations and hanging on every word. But you brought some goodies as well.
I have brought some goodies. So speaking of CD Projekt Red.
Wow, we're big fans of CD Projekt Red over at No Technical Difficulties.
Well, maybe not.
Because they make games with a lot of technical difficulties, and we sympathize.
And maybe not all of their hiring practices.
No, definitely
or playing
not.
practices.
Or commentary while they're making Cyberpunk 2077.
But so Cyberpunk 2077 came with just a bunch of just cool shit. Come with a bunch of stickers.
Wow, I didn't buy the physical edition, so I didn't.
Came with stickers. The actual game itself comes with an insert just saying thanks for buying the game.
Wow, that's nice.
We're really happy that you bought it. Basically.
What's in?
It also comes with postcards. Just
send to your friends.
Postcards for each of the different a few of the different regions.
The neighborhoods and stuff.
Yeah, or neighborhoods. A map.
That reminds me of like the GTA guides. Yeah. Those are great game manuals. If you ever find them.
A map of Night City.
Yeah,
it's cool. And what they call their World Compendium, what's kind of great about this World Compendium, gives the breakdown of the story and the past. The past being the previous Cyberpunk,
like the tabletop story.
Yeah, tabletop story stuff. And what's really cool about this is when I bought this game, I was asked when I was buying it, do I want to get the manual, the strategy guide for it? And I was like, you know what? Sure, why not? And what's really cool about the World Compendium is all of the World Compendium stuff is in here, but like there's more detail about each of those things.
Wow.
In this.
It almost proves our thesis of the manual being the aperitif.
Yeah.
And the guide being the full meal. The buffet of lore.
True. Yeah, and there's tons of pictures.
This is a really nice guide.
It's an amazing guide. I love it. I was using it as a reference for other personal projects.
Which you may or may not know about.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love this. CD Projekt Red. So happy they're keeping manuals alive.
Yeah, the few, the proud.
Which, to that point, one of the things that to your Gwent deck thing, which is great, I do struggle with that. A lot of that stuff, like a Gwent deck, or what a lot of things will do is a what's it called? Like an art book.
A big ass statue, or the art book too.
Or an art book, yeah. Or I mean, a big ass statue is different. Like an art book and stuff like that is that's all gated behind some sort of paywall.
Right.
Whereas all these manuals that we used to get were just part of the game.
Right. The price tag, the $40 to $70 that you spent on a game.
Yeah, and I mean, like I don't remember exactly, but I have all of the Souls games, physical copies of all the Souls games. I guess Soulsborne games, and it was crazy. Demon Souls had a manual. Dark Souls 1 did. Dark Souls 2, suddenly there's like nothing. And it's just like, what?
That's because Dark Souls 2 sucks.
Well, Dark Souls 3, there was also nothing.
That's because Dark Souls 3 sucks.
Or Sekiro.
Sekiro's an amazing game. Sekiro teaches you everything in the game. You don't even need a manual. You just feel that game.
I did get the special edition, the collector's edition of Bloodborne, which comes with an art book.
That's it, just the art book?
I think it's just the art book.
I had the physical Dark Souls 1. Another thing I wish I had that I could show on camera right now.
A steelbook, yeah, steelbook. Steelbook and an art book.
Okay, so that's similar to Dark Souls 1. I had like a tin with a Black Knight on it.
Yeah.
And I know that Dark Souls, they also have their design works books, which, spoilers, we're going to probably touch on the Hyrule Historia a little later. But
they're incredibly impossible to purchase.
Yeah.
Arts books from software.
Yeah. And they also are pretty dedicated to game guides as well. Like I remember the Bloodborne guide was a big thing. Elden Ring has a guide, right? It must.
It must.
It needs one.
It does need one. I don't know.
What else you got? Is that a copy of Radiant Historia?
This is a copy of Radiant Historia.
That's another
time-based game. Also has a manual.
That's a badass video game.
If I can get the box open. These cute little manuals.
Nice, thick, juicy manual.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just fun to look through.
Yeah, especially for this game. This game has a lot going on.
It does. Yeah, it tells you what time nodes are. What's both cool and annoying about these sort of things is some of the games, like these used to be in place of a lot of the tutorials, to some degree. But now that most games don't have manuals, tutorials have gotten longer.
Yeah.
Borderlands 1 had a manual, but not the Handsome Collection.
Borderlands 1 was like on the cusp.
Yeah.
On the cusp. What does the manual look like? Do they describe the characters? If so, it's a true game manual.
It describes being lured by Pandora's Vault.
Yeah, perfect.
Mentions brief blurb about the characters. The text is not easy to read. It really is though like a bare bones. It's just This is the transition point. Yeah, here are the characters. Here's what the crux of why you're here is, and then the rest is just tutorial nonsense.
Right. Pick your favorites.
Pick my favorites.
Eternal Sonata, a game I've never played.
Eternal Sonata, great. so many. This is when I started to trick you into thinking it was a full manual, and they'd give you the English and the French of just the super basic.
What a fabulous way to learn French. You already have the whole, you know the words, context clues.
Yeah, right. Did you ever get excited by those, though? Where you're like, oh my god, this manual, like it looks full.
Yeah.
And then you open it up, and it is just English, French, and occasionally Japanese.
Right. And the Japanese is just like the warranty and some disclaimers.
Let's see. I think my favorite modern manual, ironically, is going to be Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion.
Wow. And you have the superior PS3 version. That's a joke.
True. Yeah, I just used to look at this all the time. When I got it, spoilers. I bought myself a copy of Oblivion, and then had a friend that also wanted to play it, and so I was like, I'll lend it to you. You can keep it. I'm just going to buy the cheaper Game of the Year edition, because it has more stuff.
It has a DLC. What was it?
It has the Knights of the Nine, I think.
That's it. There was another one. The trickster guy.
Oh yeah, the whatever that
was. It was like the Isle of something.
Shivering Isles.
Yeah, Shivering Isles. That's it.
And it came with a map of the main Cyrodiil.
That's cool.
I appreciate a game that is like, we're a big world. Here's the map.
Yeah. You're gonna need it.
This also really awesomely tells you what all the different types of skills are.
Wow. To be fair, this was the last time an Elder Scrolls game needed that, because Skyrim, not that complicated.
No. Like, well, all different types of skills, how you level them, some of them, how you even do them. Like, it tells you how lockpicking works.
Wow. A true manual.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great manual. Gives you all the types of magic, which there's a billion symbols.
Yep.
In the game, and the types of magic, there are a good 4 pages of 4 or 5 pages of manual.
Oblivion they still had like acrobatics mixed with like some other physical traits, and it's like, this one's your run speed, this one's your jumping.
But I loved it.
Oh yeah, Oblivion is fun.
Like I say, last Metal Gear Solid. This is cool.
What's that?
This is awesome because sadly, this isn't a manual. This is the Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection. Mm-hmm. But what it has instead, came with Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Peace Walker. Instead, the book in this are all of the posters.
Oh, what?
It's a book of all of the posters that they made and released for sale and promotion and stuff.
Cost a gajillion dollars if you want to have a copy in your...
Which is just awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it is a history. It also mentions these are all the different types of this game.
Yeah, all like the PAL and the Japanese release and
the
US one. See, and that's kind of what the new wave is, right? It's like the Cyberpunk art books, or like even the manual and stuff, or the strategy guide. It's more like extracurriculars. Like, here's some interview with the developers. Here's like these posters and all kinds of cool stuff.
I mean, I feel like the art books to some degree enhance the player experience.
Maybe,
but not really. So they enhance the consumer experience.
Well, they give more to consumers.
Some
of them fucking suck.
Yeah, but I'm like they make you feel like, oh, I now have more of this, and not that I am now deeper invested emotionally in what's going on here.
Right.
Which the old manuals did. They made you feel closer to the content.
Right. Well, maybe some of them make you feel closer to the creator, right? Like, going back to the Dark Souls stuff, like, there's like prototypes of like enemies or like stuff where you're like, this wasn't in the game, what's this? and somebody finds out later, like after translating the Japanese or something, like, oh yeah, this was like a boss that they cut.
Yeah, well, like something I love, which isn't one of these at all, but was that book you got me, I think, 1 year for the holidays, Legends and Localization.
Oh,
for
yeah.
the Legend of Zelda, the first game.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. These are all the differences between the manual and the game from, the English version, the Japanese version.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that, I feel like, I mean, it does a combination of the two things because it lets me read the manual and learn about the intricacies of things that were translated incorrectly but have now been made canon because there was a wider audience somewhere else.
Yeah. That's definitely a like 1990 to like 2005 problem. That just doesn't happen anymore. But on the subject of Zelda,
yeah, I've heard of this thing.
I think the grand finale and the really the piece de resistance of this entire thing are I'm thinking the Hyrule Historia, but really the three like Hyrule books.
Yeah.
The Hyrule Historia is probably like
it's the most important one.
The most important one for sure. The other one with the art and artifacts is just like
it's basically an art book.
Yeah, and then creating a champion is just Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, art and artifacts. I don't even remember if there's text at all in this.
This is the big boy version of the Metal Gear Solid thing.
Yeah, this is definitely the big boy version. Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah. Oh man. And this is like Zelda art is like a thing. Tell me a thing that I will pay for without thinking twice about it. More Zelda art. More Zelda in general. Maybe by the time this video's out, Tears of the Kingdom will be out.
And there's some stuff. Just as somebody who has done graphic design in the past, is about the manuals that we hadn't even mentioned is a unifying design style.
Mm-hmm.
And showing it through everything. Like this Breath of the Wild, creating a champion guide. The page.
Oh yeah,
the section transitions are the loading screens.
Right, that's
from
right.
Breath of the Wild.
Which you only care about if you're doing like a print thing, like you're laying something out, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that this matters quite as much if it's like, well, maybe it does matter if it's a PDF. I don't know.
And what's really
no
cool,
shade to PDFs.
Just as a side, in Breath of the Wild, as you go through the game, you get 4 different divine beasts,
mm-hmm.
and each section adds another thing on the in the book. Which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's like,
yeah, this is an amazing book.
Yeah. But the Hyrule Historia is probably like the most important one because that really took like all the little nuggets that I tried to pull from like the Ocarina of Time,
mm-hmm.
like the manual of the game, obviously, or Majora's Mask and Wind Waker and all these different games. Like Hyrule Historia is like, hey, all that stuff, all the canon, all the things you've been thinking about, let's just throw it into one and be like, here are the fan theories that are true.
Mm-hmm.
Here's all the whatever's not in here is bullshit. I don't know that necessarily clarified. We can do a video on the Zelda timeline later.
I feel like,
but
I don't know about other Nintendo properties, but I feel like the only 2 companies that I know that are like big or properties, I guess, sort of that are doing this sort of thing, like the Hyrule Historia or these types of books, are Zelda, obviously,
mm-hmm.
but is Square Enix.
Yeah.
Who has all their Ultimania archive books for each of their things, or even for Final Fantasy XIV, which they have released. I think 2 at this point. Eorzea encyclopedias, which I'm
sure fans are just eating up because there's just a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you have it all in one place.
It's funny you say that.
Ooh, nice.
A friend who's probably watching this video right now got for me. Thank you, Henry. And it's like, again, it's just cool art, right? Hey, if you are a fan of Animal Crossing and want to make a character from Final Fantasy in your Animal Crossing art, this is the book for you.
They are giving you like the actual
right.
Wow.
If you want to just recreate the sprites.
Yeah, they're just giving you the sprites.
This is this is fun, right? They're
showing you how to make the sprites. That's amazing.
Yeah. So this kind of stuff, again, extracurriculars, right? Maybe not something you would necessarily get in a game manual or in a guide or something, but you got some nice interviews at the end here.
I feel like people.
Oh, here's some
That's
sprites
cool.
that don't exist.
Yeah, I noticed
Except
this
in
one.
mobile
I
games.
noticed this one first, which is a character from Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's sort of what's become of like people, I guess, in our generation who loved getting these manuals.
We've just made our own.
Is well, sort of, we're no longer getting manuals, so we're creating or finding ways to create or get a hold of books that instead just give us more details about the backstory of how these games were made, because we're not sure we're gonna get anything more about the lore that is tangible, or like any other type of feeling besides just playing the game again.
Right. Which even then won't be the same.
Yeah.
As unlocking some new tidbit from like a book.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's a wonderful place to conclude this essay. This video essay? Is this a video essay? This is a video essay.
It's a video conversation essay discussion.
A VCED?
A VCED.
That's way better than No Technical Archives. Welcome to VCED. You know what? On episode 2, you'll know.
We'll call it VCED.
You'll know what we decided to call it by the time we get to episode 2.
So just to conclude with talking about VCED, that as you mentioned at the beginning, this is something we're thinking about doing sort of for each game we finish as like a post-mortem sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not going to be the same.
It's not going to be the same thing. Yeah. We're going to find a different thing in each game.
I'll just show you my art books at the end of it. Oh, here's a freedom fighter. Here's an art book of communist Russia.
That's going to be difficult. How do we figure out what we're going to talk about?
Oh, I have ideas. Don't you worry.
For freedom fighters?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Have you ever fired an AK-47? That's not true. I'm not going to do that.
Yes.
Have you ever fought communism?
Yes.
Well, then I'm out of ideas.
Have I ever fought communism? I don't know.
Indirectly, I'm sure.
I mean, I engage in capitalism.
You did all that commentary.
by requirement every day.
You watch me destroy. I already forgot his name.
True.
No one even
Luigi and
knows.
Mario.
That's not even out yet.
It's true.
No one's even gonna know what we're talking about.
It's true.
This is why we have to release This is why we just need to release 10 videos a day.
Okay, I'm down.
Anyway.
Comment, like, subscribe if you want us to release 10 videos a day.
Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, B. Thank you very much for sharing all your goodies.
Yeah.
In this awesome first episode of VCED, and we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Ta-ta.